how did you get into all that? Like music, were you always like talented in it, or did it come to you, or did you discover it, or how was the whole?
Well, I come from a family of musicians.
Oh, okay.
So growing up, I was always around my father, and he always had like a recording studio at our house in the garage, and he always had musicians coming over, jamming and playing music with him and recording with him. And so I was always around it, and I was in a household that was full of everything from jazz and classical music to rock and roll and soul. So I had a really kind of vast musical vocabulary as a child.
Oh, okay.
Just in the house, just my parents listened to everything. And so the interesting part about all this is, as it pertains to your podcast, is that when I was little, I think they realized kind of early that I was a little more advanced than other kids in terms of getting through the curriculum at school a lot faster than everybody.
Oh, okay, that's awesome.
Ultimately, in junior high school and high school, I entered a program in San Fernando Valley called IHP, which was Individual Honors Program. I was basically around the same group of 60 odd kids for the academic classes from 7th grade to 12th grade.
Oh, that's awesome. I would have never known that.
It was cool.
Wow.
So half the day, I'd be with the rest of the school in kind of the, wood shop or
Right.
physical ed, things like that. And the other half for like math and history and those classes, I was with this same group of kids for 6 years, basically.
Wow.
So before I got to that point, I spent a lot of time in from maybe 3rd grade through 6th grade. Most of my time was spent with teachers because kids used to pick on me.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. What for? Like, why did you get those?
I was small. I was super quiet. I really didn't talk a lot. And because I was so small and because I was quiet, some of kind of the bigger, more aggressive kids used to mess with me. I remember a lot of times, like, they would, like, at lunch, I'd get, like, milk dumped on my head.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear
And, I don't think, I might have got pushed around a little bit, maybe punched once or twice.
Oh.
I was little. I think that's what it was. Just like I was really awkward and really shy and really quiet and really small. And I think because I started early, I was younger. And so I never really I had like one friend, this kid who I used to play Dungeons and Dragons with, Carlos. And then I had, I've been DJing my entire life. And I traced it back somewhat recently to that time in my life and why I became a DJ. I remember when I became a DJ, but someone asked me what made me become a DJ recently, and I had to think about it for a minute. And what I realized was, and this goes back to your question, how did I get into it?
Right.
I used to record songs off the radio. I would record like a song, they were called pause tapes back then, where you would record and then push pause and wait for another song you'd like to come on and then take pause off and record that song. And they were essentially mixtapes.
Okay.
And so I would record all these songs off the radio. And there were a couple radio stations back then. There was KDAY, which was a hip-hop, and kind of soul station. That was like closer to 5th and 6th grade. KIQQ, which was a pop station. KROQ, which you could hear like Duran Duran and kind of new wave stuff. And I would just record whatever. And I brought it to school one day. I brought my radio to school. And I played it at like lunchtime. and these kids came over, and they just started like dancing around me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then when the bell rang, they left, and I was like, wow, like for the first time in my life, I had something that was external to me in a way that was the bridge to these other kids.
Right.
And so I did it again. And like before the teachers caught on a few weeks later, and they're like, you can't really bring that to school, dude.
Oh.
But for at least a couple weeks, the feeling I got from finally having, in my mind at least, friends around me because of this music that I chose to record. You know, I made those decisions to record those songs. So fundamentally, I was kind of DJing. I brought this into school, and all these kids started dancing around me. And the feeling, I remember the feelings that I was having at that time, looking back now, was the first time that I felt like maybe I had something to offer other than being this like shy, awkward kid to the other kids in school.
Right.
So that was, then I developed friendships with some of those kids, and they became my friends. And then from that point, moving forward, this is probably like 5th grade.
Oh, that's pretty young. Wow.
Yeah,
You
5th
started
grade.
that early.
Yeah, I remember. I was at Toluca Lake Elementary. And so I think that was the beginning of, you know, obviously I didn't start my music career in 6th grade, but like that was the spark, which led me to start DJing in 10th grade when I actually bought the equipment. And then I DJed every party in the San Fernando Valley.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like till I graduated and beyond. And then I started DJing professionally, which led into producing. And Justin, my bandmate in that band, he also grew up in the Valley and was born there like I was. And we had known each other for years. And so I kind of produced, born and raised in LA, so I know everybody.
Right.
Because I was a DJ. So I met all these musicians and DJs and rappers and singers and, kind of just naturally led into producing. And then Justin and I got together one day. We both have a hip hop background, he and I. We got together to make hip hop together. And after a few weeks, it kind of accidentally became She Wants Revenge.
Right. Speaking of that band, my favorite song is These Things. That song, I really like that. I must have had it like on repeat a couple of times. What inspired that song? I know they have like the album version and the radio version, right?
There's the album version, and there's 2 radio versions actually. There's the radio version, which is just an edit of the album version because it's long. And then there's a version of that no one knows this, but I'm telling you right now that we sped up. When it actually went to radio, we thought it would be a little bit better, a little faster. We never told anybody that, so we just snuck it in there because it was a little more exciting on the radio based on what they were playing at the time. We took that into consideration. It was a lot of really kind of faster stuff, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyway, These Things, Justin and I, like I said, it was an accident. We made like 4 songs. It was really, I was trying to impress a girl, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Did she ever, like, hear it, or?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, she must have been, like...
That's a really long story, but there was this girl online that my friend introduced me to. Her, not her personally, but her writing and her photography and her artwork. And he was like, she's amazing. You're going to fall in love with her art. But she never responds to anybody on the internet, ever.
Oh.
So, of course, in my mind, I'm like, okay, what do I have to do to be the guy that she responds to? So after like months of reading and everything she ever wrote, long story short, I figured out what to say to her, and she responded to me. We ended up talking on the phone.
That's awesome.
And Justin and I had just done a song. Our Tear You Apart was like, our Red Flags was the first song that we did, and I played it for her. And she was like, oh my God, I love that. Do you have more? And I was like, yeah, I have more. I'll play more tomorrow. And she's like, that would be great. And then I called Justin. I'm like, dude, we got to make another one. And he's like, okay. And he came over, and I think we made Tear You Apart next. And then I played it for her. She's like, oh my God, that's amazing. Do you have any more? I'm like, yeah, I'll play another one tomorrow.
Oh, this is awesome.
Justin, you got to come over. And came over and we did these things, and then we did Out of Control, and we had those 4 songs, and then we were like, wait a minute, we have something here. We should make a whole album.
Right, definitely.
And we did, but wasn't completely because of her, but I will say that she super motivated me to continue doing what we had started, because I was just trying to impress her.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Well, I'm happy to have you on. That song, I've been listening to it for a while. I was like, I didn't want to fan out right away. But wow, it's awesome to hear that. Yeah. I was gonna ask you. My first question was gonna be, what is self-love to me? Because self-love to me was one of the biggest things that went behind the whole bullying. Because I got bullied a lot as a kid. I had low self-esteem, and I just felt like I didn't have the confidence to do anything I wanted to do. And then when I learned to love myself, not till when I got older, around 20, I just got a job, started buying things, started going to the gym, started feeling good about myself, why, I look in the mirror and I like this person. Then I started giving that gift to then I got a girlfriend, and so that's why I think that whole thing self love has a lot to do with how you feel about yourself. So I don't know, what does it mean to you when you think of self love?
I've always been a really giving person, to a fault. Every relationship I'd ever been in, I gave a lot. But what I didn't realize back then, and in the last maybe 7 or 8 years, it took me a long time to realize, not only was I not ever, in my opinion, getting back what I was giving, not that that was a prerequisite, but I felt like I'm just that kind of person that even though someone may not be reciprocating in the way that I think now that they should have been, I felt like maybe they were taking advantage of me. And I've had a lot of relationships like that over the course of my life where I just want everybody to be happy and I just want to give and give and give. But having said that, people had asked me up until a certain point in my life, how many times have you been in love, or have you ever been in love? And I couldn't answer it because I don't know if I knew what it was.
Wow.
I was well, I really liked this person a lot, and I felt a certain way around them. I just really don't even know what love is, because I know what people define it as, and I know what certain things feel like to me, but I don't know what that is. And that was alarming to me. Not in a bad way. I was just maybe I'll never know what it is. Maybe someday I will. But then at that point, I thought, you know what? I need to go on some kind of quest, or whatever you want to call it, to figure out what it is. And the only way that I can really do that is figure out what it is for me. And I don't think I did love myself at that point. I had love for myself, but again, I had a lot of insecurities growing up. I was bullied, and that never really goes away. No matter what you do, you can only really kind of compensate in whatever ways you can, and move on. But I think self-love to me, for me personally, was realizing how to make that change from not ever really thinking about, do I love who I am? I think being a DJ and being an entertainer, certain things come along with that, and I love the lifestyle that I'm in. I love things that come along with the successes that I've had in my life, but that's being in love with circumstances and external things, and being in love with how those things made me feel. But I couldn't look in the mirror and go, you know what, I love everything about myself. To be honest, I had a problem for many, many years looking in the mirror. I avoided it a lot. I still do sometimes. But I think for me, self-love, and so I guess a long answer, but self-love, before I could even imagine being in any kind of relationship where if somebody were to ask me, have you ever been in love? And I say yes, I needed to know what it was so I could give it and understand and recognize it and accept it. So I had to figure out, how do I love myself? Well, I think I was always imagining myself as something I wasn't. What can I be? how can I change myself to become this other version of
Right.
myself? Always kind of looking towards the future and never really looking at who I am and accepting it and being happy with it and loving it. It was always like, well, I could lose weight. I can, be healthier. I can be better at all the things I do. I can be more mindful. I can be more thoughtful. Like all the things that like, it's like that thing where you can always give really good advice, but maybe not take it yourself. Or really good that way. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it took me a while to just accept myself because I just needed to know what it was. And ultimately I did. I was like, you know what? I'm cool. Like in my own way. I'm okay with who I am. I'm okay with who I am and what I have to offer instead of some future version of myself, I guess,
Right.
or accepting quote unquote love from someone else who may or may not have been taking advantage of me in certain ways. There's a weird relationship, which is a whole other podcast about empaths and narcissists.
Right.
And I think that a lot of my previous relationships up until a certain point in my life were that weird relationship where I was getting taken advantage a lot of the time from somebody who's like a narcissist or a sociopathic narcissist in some cases. So yeah, ultimately I learned how to love myself, and I think it's important to understand what it is and be okay with yourself before you can even attempt to give it to anybody else.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to ask you, I know we touched on it in the beginning, how you said you had got bullied in school. One of my questions are always like, when you were in school, was there a way maybe you wish the administration or school or teachers would have handled some cases better? Like if you had some advice for them or something, is there any way you wish they went about things? Or is there any advice you give on how they could probably improve bullying within their schools?
I think there's so many ways. When I was in school, there was no social media, there's no internet.
Me either.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
now it's almost impossible to avoid it,
Mm-hmm.
or at least being aware of it on both sides.
Right.
When I was in school, I was just lucky that like I lived close to school, so I could run home.
Oh man, did you have to do that ever?
I lived like 3 blocks from school. I had to run home a lot, man. I had great teachers. I don't think that they knew how to handle it. I don't think the administration had any idea how to handle it. It was always just like one guy's word against another, and they're just like, maybe you guys just shouldn't hang out, or just separate, or somebody would get busted, or you both get busted.
Right.
And you have to I would get busted for being on the wrong, the shit. Sorry for my language. I think so. I don't know. I think you have to make. It's probably different in a lot of schools and a lot of classrooms, but I would imagine that there are a lot of things you could do. I think you have to have a set of rules. You have to be able to have open conversations with all the kids, I guess, the bullies and the people that are getting bullied, and make sure that everybody's aware of what's going on. I think that it's just a dialogue. I think it's just the more you talk about something with everyone, and the more you make it less stigmatized. And I think hopefully we're heading that way as a culture, but who knows? I just know that it was, for me, I was just so lucky that there was this one teacher who was my friend.
Oh.
And so she made it okay for me ultimately, by going to the kids' parents and busting them, which didn't feel good. I didn't want anybody to get busted.
Right, I was always like that too. Because I thought it's only gonna amplify this situation and make it worse, and they would usually come at me in a later time, like a locker room, or they would get you because you're always around them, and it's like, oh man, now they're really gonna mess with me. So I was always that kind of person, and also when I came home, my only way of dealing with it was staying away from my brother and sister and my family. They'd be like, what's wrong? I should be that type to go in my room, close the door, nothing. because I knew it was like already happening. So to deal with it at home, I didn't want my parents to kind of in a way know that I'm getting bullied because it was like a pride thing too.
Right.
So my thing was just like I would like keep it inside and I wouldn't really talk about it. But things have changed nowadays. I was gonna ask you, what do you make of like cyberbullying, and how do you deal with it? Because I know you have like a big following on social media, and I know that there's been times where you probably got like negative energy. How do you deal with that whole trolling?
You know, when the band first came out, and you know, I've been in charge of the band's social media since day one.
Mm.
We started on MySpace.
Oh,
We actually started on Suicide Girls.
Oh,
Which, in my opinion, was the first social network.
I saw that whole movie they made about that too.
Did they?
Yeah,
I didn't even see it.
where these girls were like, yeah, it was intense.
It was the first thing I remember where you could have a profile with some information and speak, kind of like chat with other people on the site. I know that there was like live journal where like people would just write their shit and you could communicate with each other. Anyways, from day one, I've always been in charge of the band and stuff, and like I remember in the very beginning, we got so much shit. Like, as for every person that was like, oh my god, I love this stuff, someone was shitting on it.
Oh man.
And like, my first reaction was like to really break it down for them.
Like engage with them?
Oh yeah. Every single one. Everyone.
Oh wow.
So we came out right after Interpol came out. Now, we're a little bit older, and a lot of people were like, you guys are just ripping off Interpol. Like I'll just use one, for example. And the truth is, like, Interpol had nothing to do with this. We didn't grow up listening to Interpol. They had only been out for a year. We didn't sound anything like them other than the fact that they both, you know, that sometimes their vocals are in a certain range. But like people were like, you're ripping off Joy Division, you're ripping off Interpol. And we're like, we never listened to Joy Division and we never listened to Interpol. And so people would shit on us, like, you guys are just hacks. And then I would go, listen, man, and I'd like write these like epic 5-paragraph response about breaking down, like, no, you're wrong. And in a way, because I'm in the band, I was getting bullied.
Right, definitely.
And a lot of negative energy, man. And so Justin, my bandmate, he was like, look, dude, you create something, whether it's your life, or it's music, or it's a piece of art, or it's what you say on your social media, you put something out into the world. So you're making something public, whatever it is. Once it's out there, some people are going to like it, some people aren't. Now, you just have to accept that. Now, there's a lot of people in this world that have plenty of time on their hands to go on the internet and just, they're sad people or depressed people or angry people or whatever. They got nothing better to do sometimes than attack you. But fundamentally what he was saying to me at that point was, some people are going to like what you do, some people aren't. You just have to accept that. It's just how the world is. Mm-hmm. So you just have to be okay with what you're putting out there in the world and live with it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I'm like, that's exactly my process on it too, where it's like, if you're going to put yourself out there, there's always going to be a defining like force that's going to not like it. So just be ready for that. So yeah,
you know, you just have to do the best you can, and you know, you make a decision when you put yourself out there. And when you do make that decision, you just have to be prepared for whatever the consequences are. And I'm not saying that it's okay to bully. I'm just saying that it's just part of what happens when you do that. And you know, it sucks, but it's understandable when you think about humans, human nature, and all the different kinds of people that are out there. So I think you just have to do your best to like take it with a grain of salt if possible. And I know that there are kids out there that are bullied in a different way. I mean, I'm just bullied because people were comparing my band to another one. But you know, it doesn't feel.
But that could be annoying too.
No, I mean, you create art, And everybody has their own interpretation of it. It doesn't change what it is for me, but just definitely feels good when someone's like, "Oh my god, I love your music," and it feels bad when someone's like, "I fucking hate what you do."
Right.
Because I never want to feel that way.
Me either.
But when you look at it statistically and think about it logically, it's never going to be everyone in the world loves every single thing you do.
Exactly.
So you just have to kind of prepare yourself for it and develop the tools. I mean, that probably goes across the board for everybody. It's like whatever kind of information you're giving to the world, whether you're an artist or just a human being putting up a profile and some photos on Instagram, I think it's really trying to develop whatever tools you need to have to be able to handle all situations in life, including people trolling you and bullying you, and being able to just like let it slide off and not let it affect you, which isn't easy to do, but it's definitely possible.
Definitely, man. As this podcast is coming to an end, my last question is going to be for the younger you that was getting bullied during the time you were like, unfortunately, I'm sorry to hear that you had to like run home and deal with that. It's never nice. I would do that stuff in a different way, like go to like we used to have like arcades by our school, so I would like go to those, escape and stuff like that. So my question would be for anyone that's listening or when we post it to your followers. I know you have a lot of younger followers. If they're going through the same things you're going through, what would be your advice to them right now if they felt like that?
That's a difficult question and an interesting one. I think I'm still learning. I'm probably older than everybody listening, but I still have revelations. I still have epiphanies. I still am developing tools to deal with things that I'm dealing with now. Back then, the advice I would probably give myself now, which I've given to people, is that, you really just have to embrace who you are and be yourself and not let all these other people from one reason or another, because they don't agree with how you look, what you wear, what you listen to, what you're into. No one is who you are, and no one has all the things that you have to offer. And some people may get it and some people may not. But ultimately, and I know it's hard as a kid to understand that, but at a certain point, it's important to embrace, and this goes back to the self-love, who you are.
Right.
And once you can start to develop that love with yourself and just say, you know what, this is who I am. Some people are going to get it, some people aren't. And I know some people get beat up, and some people get milk poured on them, and some people just get taunted on the internet. But one way or another, I think it's developing that tool. How do you get to that place where when someone does something to you or says something to you, you understand that it's coming from someone else external. It's their issues that they're taking out on you because they don't understand. They might be afraid. They might be confused. They may come from a household where things are totally different than the one you're in. So I think it's really just like learn to accept who you are, love yourself, and figure out how to move forward in your life one way or another by letting all those things bounce off you. And again, I know that that's easier said than done, but had somebody said that to me when I was in fourth grade, and I listened, which I probably wouldn't have done, I may have taken it. I don't know about fourth grade, but I think it's an important lesson whether you're in fourth grade or whether you're 40. It's accept who you are and love yourself, and do your best to develop the tools for allowing yourself to be who you are and not accepting other people's opinions of you, because ultimately they don't matter. I know it's one thing when you're getting beat up. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter what anybody says or does. All you can do is be responsible for the